Okay, finding deals on market. So first of all, why? Everyone who's in this webinar has gotten our emails. So you probably are aware that, we've been publishing some statistics on buying on market versus off market. And, it turns out that on market deals are great. Like the average return on market deal is basically neck and neck with an off market deal. And there's twice as many deals. And when I say deals, I mean flips. So we just did the analysis on flips. So if you're buying flips, conventional wisdom is you want to go on off market to buy them. But the truth is that there's a lot more to that. And if you're a flipper and you're not looking on market, you're missing out on two-thirds of the possible flips that you could be buying, and you're not really getting anything by doing that. So first, let's talk about why people think the MLS is bad. Let's clear some misconceptions. So people think the MLS is crowded. There's a lot of competition. Everybody knows about these properties already. So how could you possibly get a good deal? There's always going to be someone who bids it up higher. Um, Commissions. The seller is paying a listing agent, they're paying the buyer's agent, they're spending all this money. That makes their margin smaller. So the sellers are not going to be willing to discount as much. And then there's the uncertainty that, like, when you get a deal sent to you as a wholesale deal, you just kind of like say yes and it's done. Whereas on market, you might have to visit, you're writing an offer, you might not get that offer accepted. There's a lot of back and forth. So it feels like your time is a little uncertain there too. But I'm here to tell you that all these things are advantages also. So competition, everyone's telling you to buy off market. So if everyone's talking about that, where's the competition? I would say there's so much competition off market. If you're mailing directly yourself, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go for absentee owners who have like, certain amount, free and clear. Every single person, a lot of investors that you're competing with are also mailing that. If wholesalers are sending you deals, most of the time they're sending it to a lot of people. So you're going to have this competition either way off market, and that could bid things up too. There's no commission off market, but there's also an assignment fee if you're buying from a wholesaler, and if you're marketing yourself, that costs a lot of money too. You're sending mailers, you have your a call center. It all gets really expensive. And then uncertainty, I mean, same thing, with all this competition off market, there's a lot of uncertainty when you're mailing things. A lot of people just never end up succeeding at contacting sellers. So there's a ton of money wasted there, a ton of effort wasted. So there's a huge uncertainty buying off market. So, in conclusion, I think off market, I think it's great. You should definitely look at off market deals, subscribe to wholesaler deal alerts, see what's out there. But don't discount the MLS because of these ideas, when in fact the MLS on average is producing just the same returns as off market, and there's really twice as many opportunities on market. So to get into it, finding a deal is all about, and when I say deal, I'm mostly going to focus on flips today, because I think flips are sort of like the most clear-cut use case of how we're going to go about finding deals. Because a rental is kind of subjective. Some people are buying a rental because they think the market will appreciate. Maybe there's a tax advantage for them. Maybe it's cash flow. So there's not really one way to go find a rental. Whereas with flips, there's really only one way to do it. You can use these rules like, oh, the 70% rule, but there's really only one way, and we're going to cover that today. So when you're buying a flip, it all comes down to price. Every deal is theoretically a good deal at a certain price. Maybe the project is too big for you to handle, or outside of what you want to handle, so you skip it. But it always comes down, for at least a flipper out there, there's going to be a price which this is profitable for them to buy. So what we're looking for when we're looking at deals on market is we're trying to figure out which listings can we get the price we want. Not necessarily the price that it's listed, but the price that we want. And there's a process for going about this. There's, I don't know, in the Seattle area where I am, there's probably 6,000 plus listings on the market. So there's a ton of properties. And when you're getting into looking for those properties, especially if you're newer, it can feel like, oh, it's exciting to look through all this information and kind of get to feel for them. You feel like you're being productive by like going through all these properties, but there's so many, and most of them are bad deals. They're not going to work for you as a flipper. So the fastest you can say no, the faster you're going to be able to move on to the next property and actually identify the ones worth spending time on. So the kind of no flow chart, if you will, and it doesn't have to be exactly this, but the general idea of what I'm doing is I'm looking at photos first. If it's there's nothing really for me to improve, okay, great. I'm moving on to the next one. I'm not wasting any time on that. The next thing is I'm trying to figure out what's this property, what could it be worth? What's the after repair value? What is the comps showing for that after repair value? If that margin is too slim, like let's say you're a flipper and you're seeing a property that's listed for 600 and it can only sell for 700. It doesn't even matter if it's like a $30,000 fix up. The numbers just aren't going to work between all the transaction costs of reselling it, the carrying costs, and the like. So then you do, if you still can't say no after the comps, then you get to the numbers, start actually fine tuning it, kind of get an estimated rehab of what you think it might be. If you still can't say no because it's still looking like a juicy deal, now you're starting to dive way more into the property. So you're going to actually like go visit the property. You might, instead of just kind of ballparking the rehab, get like a much closer idea of it. And then you start negotiating. We'll talk about that a lot this webinar. And eventually you make your offer. So the offer is actually a critical step, especially if you're a new flipper out there. The most important thing, like if you're an experienced flipper, you don't want to be making a lot of offers because it's going to be a waste of the agent's time. And if you want a good agent, they're not going to want to they're not going to stick around if you're just blasting out offers. But if you're a new investor, writing the offer, especially if it's like your first flip ever that you're buying, writing an offer is really the most important part of the analysis, because the moment you say, here's what I'm willing to pay, you've essentially said, I've done the analysis. Here's what I actually feel comfortable offering. And most of the time when you're starting out, your number is going to be way too low because you're afraid, and you should be, that you don't want to like lose your shirt on your first deal. But once you actually write those offers and you do that analysis, you'll start to get more comfortable with the market. You'll keep getting rejected on your offers, and you'll start to feel like, okay, at least I'm not overpaying. And you kind of inch your way up. And as you're doing that, you're gaining experience for what's happening in this market, and you'll get more and more confident with your analysis. And eventually you'll be, buy something, you'll gain experience, and you'll just have that like internal confidence of what is the most I can offer on a property. And then we're going to reduce down from doing a lot of offers to like almost no offers. Okay, so let's dive into the website. So everyone here should know about our website because we only invited our mailing list. So I'm going to type in an area, and let's say Seattle, because that's where I am. I'm going to pick the one that says metro area, because if you're a flipper, you can specialize in Seattle, but just be aware that there's not going to be that many listings. So for the example here, I'm going to do Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue. Anywhere that your contractors can get to and still do quality work on time, you want to like keep your area as broad as possible. So this might be too broad of an area, but we're just going to use it as an example. Okay, so we're pulling up listings. It's taking a second here. A lot of listings to pull up. All right, it's taking quite a while. Let's see, we'll give it a refresh here. Okay, well, let's give it a moment. It's crunching a lot of stuff. Every listing on the market, it's estimating an after repair value, an estimated rent, it's calculating estimated equity, all sorts of things. Normally moves a little bit faster than this, but we'll give it a little bit more time. Any questions in the meantime? Okay, here we go. Perfect. Okay, in the Seattle metro area, there's 7,323 listings for sale. That's a lot of properties. And we can start cutting those down right away with just kind of standard things that we want to search by. So let's say we're going to only look for houses that we want to flip. Okay, we've cut it down a little bit. Now, price point. Let's say we're only willing to do, 800 for a purchase price. Okay, now we're down to 2,000. It's still way too many properties. And that's where the gross gain comes in. So the gross gain is how much higher the after repair value is than the price. So for example, if the after repair value is 1.2 million and the purchase price is 1 million, the gross gain is going to be 20%. And that's the number that I think we should use here. Now, most flips, 20% is not going to be even near enough for you to make a profit on it. But I want you to use 20% for a couple of reasons. One, a lot of properties end up selling for less than their actual list price. So you want to be aware of these, and whether you're able to get those offer lowballs today or you have to wait a week or two, you want to be aware of those and tracking them and not limiting yourself to only the ones that are clearly good deals for everyone to see. The other reason is that a computer is estimating this after repair value. So you have to assume that in some cases, the estimate is way too high, but in some cases it's way too low too. And we don't want to limit ourselves. So I think 20% is probably the golden number here. There's 227 left to see here. That's not that many. If you're serious about flipping a property and you can't look at 227 properties, what are you doing? And, you know, on any given day, there's only, I don't know, 20, 30 new ones that match this criteria. So you only have to get through the 200 one time and then, you know, save the ones that you think are promising and then just review the new ones each day. Okay, so now let's dig in to the properties. So the first thing we do is we look at photos. I mean, this is clearly, there's nothing to do here, so we can move on. Next one, we look at the photos. Okay, there's clearly something to do. Maybe we can open that in a new tab, you know, just click Command and click or Control click if you're on Windows. Next one, whoop, let's see this. It's kind of uncertain if we can say no or not. You know, it's kind of ugly color, so we're gonna just open that one just in case. Over here, Tacoma. Okay. Probably something we, you know, maybe, I don't know. We can return to that one. We've already got some good ones. If you're doing this seriously, you should probably look at, you know, every single one. Here's another one, University Place. Okay, this one clearly we can do something with it. And you can keep going down this list, but as an exercise, you know, you can just do these one at a time and then move on to the next one. Is this one a okay, we're gonna skip that one. Okay, so we'll go to the first one and we're just gonna analyze it quickly and do our thing. So we looked at the photos. We know that there's definitely some work to be done here. We scroll down and we think about our after repair value. So if you're new to the website, like the main thing that it does besides helping you find the deals is it looks for comps that it believes are in a renovated condition. So you can see most of these comps here are flips themselves. And when it comes to like what the comp means for the after repair value, the important thing is not what it's sold for, but what we call the adjusted value. So the adjusted value is what it's sold for, but then adjusted for all the differences between the subject property and the comp. And so one of the main adjustments that you need to do on a comp is the time adjustment. Because when a market's volatile, for example, and something sells 2 months ago, if a market's going down quickly and you look at a comp from 2 months ago, it could be way off base. It could be way too high and no longer a reflection. And vice versa. You know, if the market's been appreciating a lot over the last few months and you're not factoring that in, you're going to get smoked by the competition and you're never going to be able to buy one of these properties. So we've got some appreciation there. We like to do a 1-year search on the comps. We found that 2 years is actually even better, but most people just thought it was blasphemy, so that they didn't want it. So we do 1 year. And the idea here is that a comp that sold a year ago, as long as you adjust for appreciation, it's more information. It's nicer to know. Like a comp that's like a month old or something, you know, if you get a bunch of 1 month old comps, like, yeah, that's going to be great. That's what the market's buying today. But once you get back to like 3 months, 4 months, the buyers from 4 months ago are no longer the buyers today. So the buyer behavior, the actual humans out there making offers on properties are no longer the same ones. So once you go back like 3, 4 months, you might as well go back a whole year, because now you're just seeing like what's been happening. What do people normally pay for in this area on these flips? So we look at these adjustments. You know, one thing I'm noticing right here is it's 1.5 bathrooms. So maybe we can, you know, turn that into 1 3/4 bathrooms, meaning we'll give it a shower. So we can, you know, look through the photos at some point. Maybe we do that in our due diligence step and not right now. First, we want to see like generally is it could be a deal or not. And so far, okay, we look at these adjusted values. Maybe we like the photos. We think, hey, this is good. It's a little odd maybe that this house, you know, I don't know if we're looking at it from the side. So maybe this comp is the most appropriate one. So we look at this comp. Okay, lovely flip, adjusted value 417. We're at 250. We can't really discount that right away. That's a pretty big spread for that price point, but it's a lot of rehab to do. So now we get down to the actual costs, and we want to be thinking about our rehab. Now, nothing is better than your own experience and your own knowledge, your own contractor bids. It's not feasible to ask your contractor to bid out every single property that you're looking for. They don't even really want to bid out properties before you buy it. And we'll return to this later when it comes to like actually offering on properties. You know, if you're offering on only a few properties, then maybe your contractor is more open to bidding on them because you say, hey, you know, 1 out of 3 of these I actually closed on. But as like a very first pass, and don't take this as like, you know, gospel here. We have this rehab guide. So you can see like maybe we need a heavy rehab on this thing. Maybe it to the studs, somewhere in between. So we got, you know, let's say high end 77 to 87. So we go to our resale calculator, that's our flip calculator. And let's say, you know, let's say 85, just to see if like we're even in the ballpark. Okay, so we still have like a $15,000 profit here. Maybe it'll take us 6 months, starting to get a little slimmer. So it's not obvious though that we can say no, because theoretically we could buy this for 30,000 off. You know, maybe we're our own agent, so we're getting cash back from that, or our cheaper listing. Maybe we're not using a rehab loan, or we have different rates. So we can kind of like get a little bit more into that. So we can't really say no. Maybe it's less. So now we're going to talk about the negotiation, the offer. I'm going to go through this with 2 more properties, just so you can get a sense of it. Oh, we talked about the 1.5 bathroom thing. So let's click edit structure and turn this into 1.75, see if it makes any difference. Okay, great, added 8,000. Not really like a huge difference. You know, comps are just adjusted slightly differently now. Not really huge difference though. So either way, it's a maybe. Let's try this with another property, just so you guys can get a sense of it. Okay, photos. Okay, we look through the photos, and we don't, big mistake here when you're looking through photos is like spending a lot of time on the photos, because like it's fun to look at photos like, oh wow, look at this, you know, I can't believe they have a tent inside the bedroom, you know, what's going on there. Total waste of time, because if the deal doesn't pencil, you never get that time back. And before you write an offer, of course, you're going to spend tons of time looking at the photos. Like once you're like, yeah, I want to move forward with this deal, that's when we really dive in to all that detail. All we're looking for on the photos right now is like, is this even generally flippable? So like this photo right here, like I can see, I don't know if you guys can see, I'm zooming in here. You can see like this isn't like the cleanest looking property. So there's some cracks in the floor. You know, I just saw that going through. You'll get that experience as you get doing this. You'll see up here, you know, it just needs some work. But these are things that you should be able to identify in like, you know, just like have a sec when you're looking at it. Okay, yeah, I see. Okay, cool. So I can't say no to this one. We go down, we do our comps, figure out if we think that this value is correct or not. So, you know, does this house and this house kind of look to get the same? Yeah, I guess so. Look at the property. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. And, you know, I'm looking at the adjustments. And by the way, if there's an adjustment that you don't like, that you think is wrong, go with your gut, you know. But we see 432 adjusted value, 436. It's kind of a tight spread though. 340 to 430, a little bit of a tight spread. Now we go into our numbers. You know, it's not going to take that much work, but like at least a medium rehab, you know, let's call it 50,000. And we're losing money on this. Now, if this property was listed a few weeks ago and we're thinking of lowballing it, there could be some legs here. You know, if you're an agent, you can give a quick call to it. But this property, it was listed today. They're not really going to take a lowball offer. Last thing we can do is say, hey, it's 1 bathroom. Theoretically, if we could add a 2nd bathroom to it, okay, we go from 436 to 479. That's a big jump because we went from just 1 bathroom to 2. And by the way, bathrooms worth way more than a bedroom. So now we see, okay, that comp that we looked at before, that was a 2-1, we add 40,000 for the bathroom. Notice that the bedroom though really is just not worth that much. And this is because like if you're buying a property as a rental, more bedrooms is typically better. It's going to get you more rent. But if you're buying a house to live in, you know, as the end buyer, not everybody has like a big family and wants extra bedrooms. Some people would prefer larger bedrooms and have fewer bedrooms. So there is like a positive relationship where more bedrooms does increase the value a little, but not to the extent that you should ever build a bedroom. But building a bathroom can be very fruitful. So we look at this and we look at these comps. Maybe this is a deal. We need to like call the listing agent and see, can this pencil out? Let's follow it. It could be a deal. We'll dive into it more. Okay, this one. Same thing. Yep, needs some work. We do our comps. This is a pretty tight spread though. You know, there's nothing to add on the bathroom. I'm looking at these photos. Comp A and B kind of look like comp D already just feels wrong. Like this is not like comp C and D. I don't like these. They don't really fit the mold of what the subject property is. So I'm going to kind of ignore comp C and D. I'm looking at comp A. Cool. It's a flip. Comp B. We're looking at this like 550, 580 adjusted value here. So maybe it's a little bit higher than that. We'll type it in 580 here. And for our rehab, how much? Let's see how much it worked. Okay. You know, maybe heavy. You got to do those bathrooms for sure. And this property is bigger than our last one. So the estimate's probably gonna be a little higher. Let's say it's 80,000. It's a little tight. It's a little tight, so we can monitor it. Now, and let's see, some of these have like an offer review date or something. You guys shouldn't see that, those agent only remarks. So if some properties I'm looking at it, you know, and I'm going through this list and some of these are older, now the idea of like a lowball offer on these becomes like very viable. Like, oh, okay, let's actually call and do this. So what do we do now that we find these properties and we want to write offers on them, or we're thinking about writing an offer, and the property, let's say, is not like an obvious good deal. Like we need to be in a little bit lower than the price, or even it's a good deal, but we can't really bid it up that much, and we're worried there's a lot of other people. This is where you need to have a great relationship with your agent and have an agent who knows how to play this game. You don't want an agent who you just bully around and they write like hundreds of offers for you. They're not going to be good at this part. And the part is that they call the listing agent and they kind of suss out some information. And there's a lot of skill to doing this. It's not as easy as saying like, hey, what do we think this is going to land on? Or, hey, I want to offer this much money, is that going to work or whatever? There's a lot of little nuances to it. I don't want to give you guys too many of those nuances because I don't want to kind of get everyone saying the same thing to listing agents. But as an example, if you're an agent out there, this is a great one for you. You don't even have to talk to your clients first. You see these deals, you call the listing agent and you just pretend you have a client. You say, hey, my client, wants to, check this property out, but, they're only willing to pay like 225 and you just listed it. Is that even worth like visiting? And so if they just say flat out no, great. You just save it, look back to it later. If they say, yeah, maybe, why not? It indicates that there's some like openness to talking on that, especially for lowball offers. The client wants to come in at like this price. Is that even in the ballpark? And the word even here is so critical, because when you're the buyer's agent, you want to give the sense to the listing agent that you're the one who doesn't like, you don't want to waste your time. And the listing agent, you guys are buddies, you're on the same side. You don't want to waste your time, you don't want to waste their time. And by saying even, it makes it feel a little defeated, like you don't want to go there. You don't want to do that. But if the listing agents at that point, it's like, yeah, they can sense you don't really want to go there, but they think there's a chance, they're going to encourage you. They're going to say, maybe give it a shot, something like that. If they think there's no chance, they'll just give you a no, help you out. Don't know. Let's not waste anyone's time here. And the no, you just move on. But the maybe is the veiled yes there. And so that's an example of what you want your buyer's agent to be thinking and doing. And that comes with like skill and experience. Let's say there's a bidding war. How do you figure out, oh, what am I going to offer? It keeps getting bid up. How do you do that? You need an agent who's good at like being friends with the listing agent and making it so that they're on like a good texting relationship. And so that the day of, they'd be like, hey, I got my client to like 300. Is that gonna, is that going to work? And they're like, no, we're higher than that. Okay, we got to go higher. They're not going to tell you the number, but these are the things that like a good agent will have, the skill set for. So as a buyer, you want to find a good agent. Now, if you're like buying a lot of properties and your flips are like, you're buying them at like 800,000 or higher, you might be able to negotiate like a point off the commission, as a credit, or like a list back for only 1% or whatever. So you can do those things. At this price point, you shouldn't even ask for a credit. Okay, so when you're, if you get that, maybe you go check out the property, and my kind of rule for like what to do if you think there's a chance is a fresh listing, there's no rush, but a stale listing, there is a rush. So what I mean by that is if a property got listed today and it's like a Thursday, they're going to do open houses this weekend, they're trying to collect offers next week, you don't have to get on it today. You have some time to like feel it out and stuff. If it's been listed for like 3 weeks or a month and a half or whatever, and you get the sense that like you've gotten confirmation on the call that like there's a maybe here, you need to like hightail it on that deal, because those properties that are going to reduce the price, that are thinking about taking your lowball, they're also thinking about reducing the price. So I call these like pre-price reductions. So at any point, especially now that you brought it up, they might be thinking they're going to drop the price. That's still a risk for them. So they're still open to taking your offer. But if you take too long, they're going to drop the price first. Or even worse, you take a long time, and now a second person on this webinar goes and calls the same property. And now all of a sudden we have a bidding war going on. That's the worst thing they can do. So you really need to, like, when you get the sense that there's something possible here, you need to be moving really fast. Now, a good listing agent is going to do the opposite on those stale deals. They'll try to drag it on, but not to the point that you lose interest, just in case somebody else shows up on that deal. So new listing, take your time. Stale listing, as fast as you can. Okay, let's take a break, see if we got any questions here. Okay, somebody wanted to know about appreciation in Sacramento. So appreciation, it's just like the average median appreciation in that zip code, like per square foot or whatever. So it's relatively easy to calculate. It's the kind of thing that as a person, it's like impossible to calculate, because you can't just like keep track of every zip code or whatever in your head. But for a computer, it's really easy. Okay, Sacramento. We added Sacramento like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and we had a display error, and the guy there did not like us, so we got kicked out. We are going to try to get back in one day, but today is not that day, unfortunately. How much do you spend adding a bathroom? That's I think answering that question can only land me in trouble, but I'll say less than 40,000 usually, less than that profit we were seeing there for sure. Missouri, I think we actually added Missouri, maybe not. If there's any property, any areas that it feels like, oh, there should be properties here, like there's way fewer here than Zillow or Redfin, just shoot us a message. Like you can go to pelago.com, and there should be a little like chat thing here. See, that's me. So you can just like shoot me a message or whatever. We want to know what areas people are looking in. So great to know. Okay. So day to day, what we need to do is, oh, hold on. I said finished square foot. I'm not really sure what you're asking there, Kevin, if you could clarify that one. Okay, so day to day, what are we doing? We're looking at properties every single day, the new ones, and we're saving some of the old properties. So as an example, let's say you find one that it isn't like it's a fresh listing and you have to come in a little bit below offer to make it worthwhile. What do? If they have an offer review date, you add that to your calendar, and either that day or the next day, that's when you actually reach out to them. If it gets bid up, great, you move on. It's no big deal. But if they don't get any offers, now we're cooking, because that's when the panic begins, is when they don't get any offers but they can't price reduce right away because it looks terrible to price reduce after a week. People generally, the earliest people will price reduce is typically like 2 weeks. Normally it's closer to a month. It just depends how little activity, but you want to hit them between that time ideally. Or if they go back on market, like let's see this, like back on market, great signal that there could be a lowball opportunity or price decrease. Price decrease is like blood in the water. Maybe we can go even lower on that price. So like a back on market is one of the easiest ones to kind of like get some info on from the agent, because you have like it's kind of lame to just like ask the agent, hey, like, on a bidding war or whatever, like, hey, how much is this going for, or some like useless kind of question that makes the agent not like you. But a back on market, you can ask them, hey, what happened? So that's a really easy one to like start getting that relationship with that listing agent going on. Newly listed, you know, probably needs more time to do a low ball. But this one, potentially has some legs, so we're gonna save it and we're gonna get back to it. We're gonna see if it has an offer review date. So we're looking at the new ones, we're looking at the old ones, and if we're a new agent, we're trying to commit to writing an offer, a real offer that if they accept, you will actually buy it. And you want to tell your agent, like, you want to get an agent who's good at feeling it out, knows you're a new agent, and you want to have this dynamic with the agent if you're a new investor, where you're saying, hey, I am a little nervous at first about buying a property. So the numbers I give you might be too low. I don't want to waste your time writing an offer. Can you feel it out and see if this offer is like even worth writing? So that's one way you can do that too. Or if you are an agent, like a lot of people get their license to represent themselves. It's so you can just, you're just wasting it's your own time. So like no one's going to get like annoyed at you. Okay, let's go through some other filters now and some other kind of deals that you might be looking for. Ryan says he's having trouble loading the website. We are a bit of a baby company here, guys, so I'm sorry if it doesn't load quickly. Anytime you tell us about an issue, we take it really seriously. If there's a bug on the website, we really want to know about it, and that helps us make the website better. We don't have the resources that Zillow or Redfin has, but I think we provide something unique, and with your help, we can make it, a great system. Okay. Cool, Ryan, just send me that one on the chat, please, if you could, and that would be useful. If you just go to pelago.com or other URL, there should be this little chat thing in the corner here. I don't know if you guys can see it or the chat is covering it. Okay. Someone's asking about the new commission rules. So like the new commission rules is that in a lot of states, the seller can no longer offer compensation to the buyer's agent. So you just need to negotiate that with your agent, and some will be lower or higher than others. You got to find the right one. A note on finding the right agent is don't hire multiple agents. There's something like a lot of investors go through this stage where they're just like want to think that they think they should call every agent they can, and they give this agent like, hey, if you find anything that matches this criteria, let me know. Either you're going to get agents who don't know what they're doing, trying to send you deals that they think match that criteria, wasting your time, or you're going to get the agents who know what they're doing and be like, no, like I'm not going to waste my time sending you properties if you've got a bunch of other agents. Now, I want to be your primary agent, like your main person. If somebody else sends you a deal or whatever, and you want to buy them, you had some sort of handshake, and it wasn't like a deal that I could obviously find. Okay, whatever, that happens. But if you find a property yourself, I want to be the guy you call to offer on it. And more with the internet, the goal of the agent is the person feeling it out, making the offer, guiding you through possible mistakes that you could be doing, advising you. And there's also an insurance policy. Like maybe an agent feels like you're paying your agent too much money, but when something goes wrong, a skilled agent can get you out of that deal with all sorts of like random, stupid little clauses that they made sure not to do or whatever. They can give you advice on like how to handle this. They can fight on the earnest. And there's a lot of things like a good agent can do. So you're also paying for an insurance premium there. But definitely like try to have one primary agent, at least one primary agent per area, and have that dynamic. If you're going to find all the properties and you just want them to write it up or whatever, and be the negotiator and do all these things, and that gives you more leverage for saying, hey, I want like a slightly lower buyer agent commission. So you just need to think about it, be reasonable. If you're like pre-qualified, you've got the cash, you're going to buy one of these properties, an agent's going to make like 15 grand off that purchase, that's probably plenty. I'm sorry to bother any agents out there, but like, you know, someone who's willing to do a deal for 30,000 commissions, probably willing to do it for 15, in some cases less. If they do it less, they want to sometimes make more. Like, okay, yeah, this deal I only made, you know, 9 grand on, but the next deal I'm making 18 grand on, kind of thing like that. Okay, cool. So other properties that we can look at here, other things that we've recently added and kind of just tips on finding properties. So we also have this equity filter and this assumable loan filter. So the equity filter is how much equity we estimate that the house has left. So every property has their mortgages are recorded publicly. So we know how much the mortgage was, what the rate was, you know, all those things. So we can estimate, assuming they haven't paid it down early, how much of that mortgage is remaining. And the reason this is useful is because on some properties, you know, if they're free and clear, the odds that you can do a seller financing offer go up. If they have like 50% equity, if they bought it a few years ago, there's no point. Like you're never going to get them to accept a seller financing offer. It's not worth it. Now, this isn't to say you should make seller financing offers everywhere. They're kind of complicated contracts to write. But this is seller financing offer can be really good for, let's say, a multifamily property that's overpriced. It's been sitting on the market for a few months now. And you say, hey, I know this price is too high, but I love your interest rate or whatever, or I want to get a good interest rate on it. You know, maybe I can do seller financing and then do like a 5-year balloon where I buy you out in 5 years or I refinance at that point. So the whole point of the seller financing is a seller's only going to take seller financing if they're selling it for more than what they think the property is worth. And you're only going to buy it if you think that your payment is going to be lower than it otherwise would be, even if you're paying a little bit more. And you're taking a bit of a gamble here on, like, you don't want to like way overpay for a property because if you have to sell it, you don't want to like lose all your money. But if you're doing seller financing and you can get a really good interest rate, it's okay paying like, you know, it's okay not having the largest amount of like, you know, gross gain in there right away. Like if you're going to turn it into a rental, you know, even 0% gross gain, if you can do seller financing, that can be great. Like it, you know, you should kind of budget like 10% when you like, oh, are going to buy and then resell a property and some little random other costs that you carried along the way. So 0% you're losing money on, but if you can get the good rate on it, it could be worth it. So, and if we do this thing, we get rid of some of these and we just look at, for example, you know, we're back to our 7,000. We look at 0%. We've already cut out 3,000. So we've already said, hey, anything that the ARV is less than the price, already get rid of it. Let's say I add multifamily to this, 103. And a lot of these, you know, 39% equity, that's not going to work for us, right? 100%, maybe 90%. If you offer them 20% down, they still walk away with something. Could be, but remember, they have to pay their agent. So it's not that exciting at 90%. So 61%, not going to work. 73%, not going to work. So I'm going to put equity here as minimum of 100. And there's some with this unknown equity on it where we couldn't match it. There's some data problems. So I'm just going to click hide unknown equities. And we're down to 40. So these are possible ones where, you know, that could work. Because think about it, the seller who's selling a multifamily, generally speaking, is not living in one of the units. So this is already a cash flow property. They want to cash out for whatever reason. But if they can cash out, you know, 20%, for example, this one's 750. Let's look at an older one here. See, we got like this one 2 weeks ago. Okay, they're selling it for 2.1 million. Our ARV is probably way off on this one. anything that gets over like 1.5 million, the ARV is a total like roll of the dice here. But let's say obviously it hasn't sold in 2 weeks at 2.1 million. It's probably worth a little bit less than 2.1 million. But maybe it works for us at 2.1 million, and we're willing to pay 20% down on that. So the seller of this, they're not getting 2.1 million, but they are getting $420,000. And for someone who's cashing out for whatever reason, unless they're like need to do a 401, a 1031 immediately, 400,000, that's plenty of money for them for the next however many years or whatever if they wanted to buy a boat or whatever it was. So they obviously want to sell it for the full value, but if they get 400 grand up front and they're going to get the other 1.6, in 3 or 5 years, that can work for them in those situations. Okay. Let me know if you guys have any questions on that, and I'll move on to, one note actually on this. So these kind of like super low volume search things on your day-to-day, you don't search these. What you want to do is you want to save this search, and then you want to click this little bell icon. And when you click that bell icon, you get an email when something shows up that matches it. So if there's not listings every day, it's sort of like a waste of time to like go on every single day. Now you could get an email alert for every possible flip there, but it's going to flood your inbox or whatever. It's going to lose meaning to you. So the ones like your primary strategy that you're buying, like if it's like a flip, you search every day. But these kind of like, hey, if it shows up, it shows up. That's where you want to create a search alert. The other kind of new filter we added here is the assumable loan filter. So let's get rid of equity, we'll get rid of multifamily, and we can do assumable loan. So we've still got our 0%, now we do assumable loan. So VA and FHA loans are, government loans, and they are written in that they have to be assumable so that the person who has the loan can transfer them to somebody else so long as they qualify. Now, the government doesn't really like investors quite as much as homeowners. So I've been told that it's pretty hard to get these deals accepted for an investor. But if you're a house hacker out there, a new investor who wants to like buy a house, live in one room, rent out the other rooms to some friends or whatever, or you're buying a multifamily and you're going to live in one unit and rent out the other units, you're an owner occupant, and it's significantly easier to get these assumable loans accepted. Same kind of deal as with the equity thing. If well, I lost my train of thought there. So these assumable loan deals, if you're owner occupant or whatever, they can be worth looking at. Just like the assumable loans, if you're going to live there, it's probably going to be a very narrow area. Like you only want to live, let's say, in a certain part of Bellevue or like a hip part of Seattle. There could be 0 at a time, like everyone's moving to Fremont, for example, in Seattle. So you could add a drawing here and be like, hey, I want any house that's like here, and maybe add any house that's, in this area, and make some better circles than I did. But now you see there's only one, right? Price decreased 2 months ago. This could be one where maybe you do assumable loan. Like at this point, they've been sitting there a while. Maybe they're willing to take an assumable loan. Like the equity, assumable loans, the person selling it would rather sell it with like a regular purchase because it's less work. It's clean. People get their money right away. The seller financing and assumable loans take extra time, so they're only willing to do it if they don't feel like they can get the same price somewhere else. So this one, maybe it's overpriced and you can do the assumable loan for it. So on these ones where there's only really one, you want to create a search filter and create an alert for it. And so this could be like a dream home search thing, like only one every like 3 months, maybe shows up, but you want to know about it when it does, because maybe you're willing to move to do it and get that owner occupant experience on it. Maybe you sell your primary and you get to like, move that money over or whatever. Or you're renting right now, so you have some flexibility on when you move in, and just whenever that perfect deal comes up, you want to know